Welcome back to Hartfelt Beer Reviews. My name is Kyle Hart. Today we're going to be viewing an Imperial Stout from the Barrel Series from Clown Shoes Brewing Company. This is their Brunch Exorcism. This is an Imperial Stout brewed with coffee, aged in bourbon barrels, Irish whiskey barrels, and maple syrup bourbon barrels, coming in at 10.2% alcohol by volume. This beer really excites me. I've had a handful of their beers. They've all been quite good. There is one that they made, again, I'm not going to name names, that I really didn't care for. Again, we're trying to be as positive on this review as possible. This has been sitting out for about 12 minutes, allow it to warm up to room temperature so I can really get all the depth that this beer allows. I'm not going to keep this too short, but I don't want it to be too lengthy in this review. I've had some reviews lately that have been almost at the 20-minute mark, and I'm trying to get this of just a peer review standpoint, and I don't want to take up too much of your time. Now, I'm going to read you the description of the beer, and then a little backstory that Clown Shoes has written on the can. It says, "Our mission is to produce beer without pretension, while being free and a little crazy." Hey, if you don't have big, bold ideas like they do, their barrel series is, I wouldn't say it's up and coming, as in it's brand new, but they have made quite exciting, unique barrel-aged beers, which really, really stand out in my opinion. The little backstory on here says, Clown Shoes Brewing Company's Fitz is a festival maker. Here at our home at 306 Northern Avenue, with the tents begin to rise, or says when the tents begin to rise, you never want to interfere with his work. A brunch-obsessed demon didn't get the memo, apparently. He hurled giant bagels, caffeinated beverages, and strips of cooked meats at the brewery. Fitz barely phased. Exorcised the brute. Now, no longer a demon, the meek soul cleaned up his mess before descending back into hell. Brunch Exorcism is aged in bourbon barrels, Irish whiskey barrels, and maple syrup bourbon barrels. Cold brew coffee and applewood and beechwood smoked malts round out the flavor profile, delivering a demon-free brunch in a glass. It really can't get much better than that. I'm a huge barrel-aged stout fan. I do feel like they are the highest quality beers. They take one of the longest to make, and they really stand up to all the adjuncts that are potentially added to these styles of beer. Again, this is fantastic, definitely unique artwork. It looks like an angel out there exorcising the demons, which is what this is supposed to be. It's Brunch Exorcism. So, like I said, 10.2% alcohol by volume, Imperial Stout aged in bourbon barrels, maple syrup bourbon barrels, and Irish whiskey barrels. I've not had one aged in Irish whiskey barrels before, so I'm hoping that lends to a little bit of more unique depth to the flavor profile. And again, hopefully this is not too thin. That really bothers me. Packaged on February the 24th, 2020. See, they did something right. They pleased me. They got this package date on there, or canning date, or however you want to say it. Again, to me, that's really important because I want to know how fresh something, especially beer, that could potentially go bad. Granted, the alcohol percentage is high enough in this that it could last for a year or so, potentially maybe even 2 if it's stored really properly at the right temperatures. But anyway, hoping that this is not too cold. I'm going to go ahead and open it and give it a nice hard pour, see how much head I can ever get on this, and give you the review of the appearance, aroma, and flavor. Cheers. I really hope this is not too thin. It's something that really would bother me if they went through all this trouble and it's thin. Granted, maybe I'm just too anal about certain things, but to me it makes a big difference. Now, I did pour a little bit aggressively, so I do have a little bit more head than I think would be standard. Get a little bit more here. But that's a good 2-finger head, a nice mocha, khaki, almost latte colored head. Very tight, compact bubble retention. The head does seem to be fading fairly quickly at the top. Again, it's still lingering around the sides of the glass. It's exceptionally opaque. Like I said, you know, that is the moniker of this style of beer. You know, you're big, you're bold, and you're black as night, and that's exactly how I like it. Sometimes they can be bitter. You know, like I said, I've only had a handful of their beers. This is the first time having this beer. This is a rare release, released just this month, actually. Like I said, brewed in February of this year, 2020. So it is a fairly fresh beer. Again, one thing that I'm looking for, other than it hopefully not being thin, is that it doesn't have a big ethanol presence. It is 10.2% alcohol by volume, so it's a little higher compared to most beers, but for big barrel-aged stouts, it's actually low. And that from the standard, you know, some can range 11, 12, 15. I've seen them as high as 17, 18, 19% alcohol. You know, those are more like Dogfish Head type wild beers. But anyway, let's go ahead and get the nose on this. Roasted malt. Big roasted malt. I am picking up Irish whiskey. More Irish whiskey than bourbon, believe it or not, on the nose. It might be because it's still quite cold. I am getting more of a maple syrup sweetness up front. And then I'm getting a medium-bodied to a full roast coffee. And the coffee is not too aggressive. You're almost getting that, you know, it's brewed with applewood smoked malt. You're getting almost a fruity, appley kind of finish of the aroma, just lingering in the end of the aroma, which is quite nice. Again, I might not be picking up the bourbon simply because it's still quite cold. It might be subdued in this beer. But that is quite unique. I would like it to be a little bit warmer. I'm going to try to warm it up here a little bit. You know, if you just take a drink of these and they're ice cold, like you drink a Bud Light or something, and in my opinion, you're really missing out potential. And that's, even though I let it set for 10 to 12 minutes. This has been in my fridge for a while, and my fridge is quite exceptionally cold, so might not have waited long enough. But nonetheless, I might as well go ahead and dive in, see how it develops over time as it warms up for a couple minutes again. Trying to keep this short for you so I can just dive into the beer. Cheers. That is either one of the most well melded Imperial Stouts that I've ever had, or it's too cold. I'm going to go with too cold at this point because I didn't taste a whole lot other than ethanol. I mean, I'm getting notes of the chocolate malts, some maple syrup sweetness, not a really big maple syrup flavor, but a maple syrup sweetness. I'm getting a subtle oak. I am getting almost an apple brandy kind of esque note to it. The way I describe people that are less familiar with the styles of bourbon and Irish whiskey, Scotch, things like that. You know, bourbon, you can really get the graininess that it's distilled with. You really get that upfront corn grain. You get big caramel. You get big vanillas. You get butterscotches, sometimes chocolates and cloves and things like that. And Scotch, granted, this is not brewed in Scotch barrels, but this is just a way to kind of understand Irish whiskey. Scotch is more subtle. It's softer. It's far more delicate and lighter. You have to age almost double the amount of time to get the full flavor profile. To get the big, bold, true flavors that you get in a bourbon, you have to age Scotch almost twice as long. Personally, and in my professional opinion, you could easily put a 12-year-old bourbon and stack it up with a 20, 21-year-old Scotch as far as full flavor, because all Scotch is aged in second-use bourbon barrels. And so most of that juice has already been sucked out from the bourbon. So it just takes much longer to get those flavors to come out in the whiskey. Now, where Scotch is softer and more delicate, but has more depth. You know, instead of just only mainly the caramels, the chocolates, the vanillas, the maples, the butterscotches that you get in the oaks that you get in bourbon. In Scotch, you can get apple, you can get tangerine, you can get cherry, you can get walnut, you can get cedar, things like that. Now, over to Irish whiskey, which is my point here. Irish whiskey is kind of a mixture of both worlds. You know, you can get the grain sweetness distinctively from Irish whiskey if you're drinking this, you know, just the straight spirit. You get some soft caramels, maybe some soft chocolates, and even maybe you can get some butterscotch and clovey-esque notes. But it's also delicate. It's very approachable to someone who's new to the spirit world, who doesn't, drink spirits or whiskey in general. Very often, instead of giving them a big, bold 12-year-old bourbon that might be too intense for them, you give them a nice Irish whiskey that's easily approachable, that's delicate, that's soft, that's exceptionally smooth. Sometimes Irish whiskey is finished in different kinds of wine barrels to give it even more flavor characteristic on the palate. But what I'm getting from all this is, you taste all of the ingredients that the beer is brewed with. You get the roasted malts, but you're getting that soft apple. You're getting a soft smoke. You're getting some soft caramels from the oak. The oak is not too aggressive. It's not forward, Some barrel-aged stouts like Oscar Blues Bourbon Barrel-Aged 1050 or Bourbon County by Goose Island or Death's Tar by Revolution. Those are big, bold, massive, dare I say, aggressive Imperial Stouts, which I really, really love. But this, as of at least now, from just one sip in, this is more delicate. This is softer. This is easier to approach. You could easily give this to somebody who's maybe not the biggest fan of dark beer. It's not too roasty and aggressive that some can be, if you could put it that way, to where it would shut off a lot of your newer craft beer, drinkers. But let's go ahead and dive in again and see what else I can get. Caramel. Again, I'm getting that big Irish whiskey barrel. Again, still maple. Still a massive roasted malt, which I do like. Subtle chocolate. So overall, 2 sips in, as this is warming up, this is a great beer. I wouldn't say that this is one of the better ones I've had. It is quite good. Again, like I said, my partner and I on Hartfelt Beer Reviews, Jonathan Tropiel, have had close to thousands, if not more, of these rare beers over the last 5 to 6 years. So maybe our expectations are a little high because we've had so much. But this is very approachable. This is not what I expected. I expected it to be far more, I wouldn't say intense or aggressive as a negative connotation, but much more forward is something that I would have expected from this. And not that that's exactly what I wanted. That's not something that I am let down by. The fact that it's more subdued and approachable. That's actually quite nice. Instead of those just, over-the-top caramels and deep roasts, which you are getting that, but they're approachable. They're soft and they're delicate. You're getting into that green apple. You're getting a nice smoked earthiness out of this, which is quite nice. And the maple is just I wouldn't say very sweet. It's subtly sweet and it's lingering. And the coffee actually is not that apparent in this beer. It's definitely there. I'm getting a roasted coffee. But it's not in your face, which is not what I expected. I expected this to be far, far more. Now, again, this beer could just happen to be too cold. It is warming up. I'd like to sit on this for 25, 30 minutes to see how it opens up, but I'm not going to take too much of your time. As of now, this is a really great beer. I recommend anybody that can find it, go pick this up. Brunch Exorcism by Clown Shoes. Again, aged in bourbon barrels, maple syrup bourbon barrels, and Irish whiskey barrels with coffee. 10.2% alcohol by volume. So again, it's not too high alcohol percentage. It's not going to knock you on your ass like some of these will, unless you drink it too quickly, of course. But yeah, I really enjoy this beer. I recommend all of my viewers or anyone out there that enjoys craft beer, go pick this beer up. This is definitely unique. It brings a more inviting, pleasurable, might I say, approach to an Imperial Stout aged in a spirit barrel, as opposed to that aggressive forwardness that you would often expect in something like this. But again, my name is Kyle Hart. This has been a Hartfelt beer review. I hope you all have had a happy Easter to 2020. And again, join us next time for another beer review. Cheers.